I am 83 years old, and 2 months ago my heart stopped beating for 2 full minutes. I want you to sit with that for a second. 2 minutes. 120 seconds of nothing. No breath, no pulse, no me. I woke up in a hospital room that smelled like bleach and rubber gloves. You know that smell. That sharp, clean, almost chemical sting that crawls into the back of your throat and stays there. The kind of clean that doesn't comfort you. It reminds you something went very wrong. The lights above me were that pale, sickly fluorescent, the kind that makes everyone look half dead even when they are fully alive. And somewhere down the hallway, machines were beeping in a rhythm that had nothing to do with me. Other patients, other hearts, other emergencies. Mine was already over. The doctor stood at the foot of my bed with a clipboard and the calm voice, the way they do when they have said terrible things so many times the words don't shake anymore. She told me my heart had stopped. She told me they brought me back. She said it plainly, like she was reading a weather report. Partly cloudy, chance of death, we reversed it. And I just lay there staring at my bedside table. Because sitting on that table was my old wristwatch, the one my mother gave me the day I graduated nursing school. Thin gold band, tiny face, scratched so badly you had to squint to read the numbers. They had taken it off my wrist during the emergency, and the second hand was frozen, completely still, stopped at the exact moment I went down. Now here is what I need you to understand. Those 2 minutes my heart was gone did not scare me. What terrified me, what still terrifies me right now, is how easily I had thrown away the 40 years before them. I had spent decades acting like time was a bottomless well I could just keep dipping into whenever I felt like it. And lying in that bed, staring at a dead watch, I finally understood the well had been dry for a long, long time. See, I lived most of my adult life under one belief. One quiet, poisonous belief that I never questioned because everybody around me seemed to believe it too. The belief was simple. There will always be more time. Later. Tomorrow. Next month. Next year. There is always a later. And oh, how I leaned on that word, later. My friend Clara called me one Saturday morning, asked me to come over for tea. Just tea and talking, the way we used to when we were young and thought an afternoon could last forever. I said later, Clara, I have got too much to do today. My husband, my sweet Robert, he found a little cottage by the coast, a weekend rental. He left the listing on the kitchen table with a note that said, just us, 2 nights, no plans. I looked at that listing. I looked at my schedule and I said, maybe next month, honey. Next month came and I never mentioned it. Neither did he. My daughter, Sophie. God, my daughter. She must have been 9 years old when she started asking me to teach her how to bake my mother's lemon cake. The one with the powdered sugar on top that looked like snow. Every Sunday she would ask, Mama, can we make the cake today? And every Sunday I was already drowning in something else. Laundry, bills, extra shifts at the hospital, phone calls I thought were urgent but cannot remember now if you put a gun to my head. The house always smelled like coffee and obligation. That stale, burnt smell that clings to everything when you are running on fumes and calling it ambition. That was the flavor of my so-called dedication. That was what I chose over my girl and her grandmother's lemon cake. I told myself I was being strong. I told myself a good woman holds everything together. A good mother sacrifices her joy now so her family can have security later. I wore that idea like armor. I thought it made me noble. I thought people admired me for how much I could carry on my shoulders. They did not admire me. They gave up on me. It happened so gradually I did not even notice. Clara stopped calling on Saturdays. She just stopped. No argument, no confrontation. She simply learned that my answer was always the same, so she quit wasting her breath. Robert stopped leaving listings on the kitchen table. He stopped suggesting weekend drives. He stopped asking if I wanted to sit on the porch after dinner and watch the fireflies come out. He still loved me. I believe that. But he loved me the way you love someone behind glass. You can see them, but you cannot reach them. And Sophie. My girl stopped asking about the lemon cake. One day the recipe card disappeared from the kitchen drawer, and I never noticed it was gone. She had taken it to her room and tried to make it alone. She was 11. She burned it. She threw it away before I got home, and I never even knew. I found out 20 years later when she mentioned it at Thanksgiving like it was a funny little story. Everyone laughed. I almost choked on my wine. That is the thing about people. They do not leave with a speech. They do not slam the door and tell you what you did wrong. They just slowly, quietly stop asking. And the silence is so gentle you mistake it for peace. Now I have to tell you about the afternoon everything changed. And I need to slow down here because this part matters more than anything else I will ever say. It was a Tuesday, an ordinary, nothing special Tuesday in October. The leaves outside were turning that burnt orange color, and the air had just started to carry that faint bite of early autumn. I was standing in the kitchen making soup. Robert was in the garden pulling weeds. The house was quiet the way our house had been quiet for years. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. The kind of silence between two people who have run out of things to ask each other. I remember I was reaching for a glass in the cabinet. My hand was on the glass and suddenly my chest squeezed. Not like a cramp, like a fist. Like someone reached inside my ribs and grabbed my heart and just held it. The glass slipped out of my fingers and hit the counter and then the floor. I can still hear that sound, that sharp, bright crack of glass breaking on tile. Such a small, ordinary sound for such an enormous moment. I grabbed the edge of the counter. My knees buckled. The kitchen floor was cold. I remember that. The tile was so cold against my palms, and I thought, what a strange thing to notice when you are dying, the temperature of your kitchen floor. Robert came running in from the garden. I heard the screen door bang open. I heard his boots on the hardwood. He was shouting my name, "Eleanor! Eleanor!" His voice cracking the way it does when he is truly afraid, the way I had only heard it once before, the night Sophie was born and they told him there were complications. I heard him kneel beside me. I heard him fumble with the phone. I heard him say, "Please hurry, please, my wife is on the floor, she is not breathing, please send someone." And then the siren. Faint at first, like a memory of a sound, then growing louder and louder until it filled the whole house. But by then I was already fading. The kitchen light above me got dim. Robert's voice got thin. The smell of the soup on the stove mixed with something metallic, something wrong. And then there was nothing. I need you to understand what nothing means. It does not mean darkness. Darkness is something. This was the absence of everything. No sound, no cold, no Robert, no smell of autumn through the open window. But there were memories. They came at me like photographs thrown into the wind, and not a single one of them was about my career. Not one was about a shift I covered or a patient I saved or a promotion I earned. You want to know what I saw? I saw my daughter Sophie, 9 years old, standing on a stage at her school's spring recital, scanning the crowd. Turning her little head left and right, her eyes wide under those bright auditorium lights, looking for my face. I was not there. I had traded shifts with another nurse because I thought I needed the extra hours. I saw the exact moment her eyes stopped searching, The exact moment she looked down at her shoes and smoothed her dress with her small hands and decided her mother was not coming. I saw that in 2 minutes of death more clearly than I ever saw it in 40 years of life. I saw Robert sitting at the kitchen table with 2 plane tickets in his hands. He had saved up for months. A trip to Italy, the one I had talked about since we were dating. I saw him turning those tickets over slowly, then sliding them back into the envelope, then putting the envelope in a drawer where it stayed until the dates expired. He never said a word about it, not one word. I saw Clara standing in her garden alone, pulling weeds in the sunshine, an empty chair beside her, and 2 cups of tea on the little table, one for her, one for me. Getting cold. These were not dramatic memories. Nobody was crying. Nobody was shouting. That is what made them so devastating. They were small, silent moments of surrender. People I loved, learning to live without me while I was still alive. Then I woke up. The first thing I saw was fluorescent light. The second thing I saw was Robert's face, red and wet and exhausted, his garden dirt still under his fingernails because he never even stopped to wash his hands. And the third thing I saw was that wristwatch on the bedside table. My mother's watch, sitting perfectly still, its second hand frozen at the exact moment my heart gave out. Now here I am, 11 o'clock at night in a hospital room by myself. Robert went home to rest. Sophie called from across the country and said she would fly in this weekend. She said it the way you say things to someone in a hospital, gently, carefully, the way you talk to someone who might break. Before she hung up, she said, "Mama, I found Grandma's recipe card. I still have it." And I could not speak for a full minute. The fluorescent lights above me are humming, that low electric hum that you only hear when everything else is silent. And that watch is still sitting on the table like a piece of evidence in a trial where I am both the defendant and the victim. I pick it up. I hold it. The gold is warm now from sitting under the lamp. The second hand has not moved. And I realize something that hits me so hard I can barely breathe, even with the oxygen tube in my nose. My life did not almost end 2 months ago. My real life, the one that matters, the one built on people and presence and showing up. That life had been shrinking for decades. I had been dying long before my heart stopped. I just did it so slowly nobody could call an ambulance. My friends stopped reaching out, and I called it natural drift. My daughter stopped confiding in me, and I called it growing up. My husband stopped asking me for anything, and I called it a comfortable marriage. I had a name for every loss that made it sound normal. I had an excuse for every absence that made it sound reasonable. But sitting here alone with a frozen watch and a humming light and the smell of disinfectant burning my nostrils, I cannot hide behind those excuses anymore. The watch is not broken. It is honest. It stopped when I stopped. The only difference is the watch has an excuse. It is a machine. I am not. Now I am going to talk to you. Yes, you. The person listening to this right now. You are not 83. You are probably not in a hospital bed. Your heart is beating fine. And that is exactly why you are in danger. Because you feel like you have time. You feel it in your bones the same way I felt it in mine for 40 years. There is always tomorrow. There is always next weekend. There is always later. There is not. I need you to think about one person right now, just one. Someone you have been meaning to call. Someone you keep telling yourself you will visit soon. Someone who asked you for your time last week or last month and you said, "Not right now, I am busy." Call them. Tonight. Not tomorrow, tonight. Go to that dinner you keep skipping. Take that walk you keep postponing. Sit with your daughter and bake the stupid cake. Because I promise you, no doctor will ever call you and say, just so you know, your daughter quietly gave up on you last Thursday. No machine will beep when your husband stops hoping. No alarm will sound when your best friend decides you are never going to show up. Those deaths are silent, and they are permanent. I am 83 years old. I have got a second chance that I do not deserve, and I am spending it in a hospital room talking to strangers, because if even one of you puts down your phone and walks into the next room and says to someone, I am here, right now, no phone, no excuse, I am just here, then these 2 minutes of death meant something. One day your watch will stop too. That is not a threat. That is a fact you already know and keep filing away for later. The question is not when it stops. The question is whether anyone will still be waiting by your bed when it does. Do not wait for the glass to break. Go now.